Hello, hello. It's episode 63 of the Late Challenge podcast with me, Paul Cope, and him, Gareth Roberts. The wheels haven't quite come off Liverpool seasons yet, but someone's undone the nut and the whole car seems to be wobbling. So we're going to be having a big chat about what's happened in the last 7 days since we last saw you. We're going to ask where it's all gone wrong and whether there's any hope left. We'll have a chat about how knackered we looked against Crystal Palace, how shite we looked against Atalanta, and how we can salvage something from the last few games so that Jürgen's final season doesn't end with a whimper. As usual, we'll check in on Arsenal and the 115 club. And after all that, if there's time, we'll reflect on the ticket price protest of last week. The news about the new independent regulator being a waste of time, Xabi Alonso winning the league, and me going to see some birds of prey. We might even squeeze in some chat about Robbo's kid having a poo on the potty for the first time.
Go on, Ollie.
But before we get to that, in a complete change of tone, and importantly, before we get started, we're recording this, and if you're watching live, you're seeing it, on the 35th anniversary of the Hillsborough disaster. So obviously wanted to pay our respects to the 97 people who lost their lives that day, and to say our thoughts with the family and friends of all those who died and the many others who were impacted by the day. I think it's also important to say at a time when tragedy chanting's been raising its ugly head, and we chatted at length about this a few weeks ago, to take a few moments, and I've been reflecting on this a lot the past couple of days, to go beyond the words that we all usually say. And we all do this every year. We stop and we pay our respects, and everybody tweets about it and posts messages. And that's all lovely, but I think every now and then it's just important to stop and really reflect on what this all means, and what we're talking about in the context of us being football fans and people, and why we should come together on this topic rather than fighting among ourselves. And I don't know why for me this year it seems more poignant than it usually does. Maybe it's the 35th anniversary, maybe it's the fact we were talking about tragedy chanting a few weeks ago. Let's just go back. On this day in 1989, 35 years ago, 97 people just like you and me went to support their football team at a match and didn't come home. And I don't think we reflect on that enough in amongst this. I don't think most of us stop to think of the reality of that and what it would feel like now. And then following decades of a cover-up by the state, forcing the traumatised families and their friends to fight for justice, when millions were telling them to stop and to put it behind them, the official verdict was found that the people who died were unlawfully killed by the people who we trust to look after us and protect us and keep us safe at sporting events and anything else we attend. Because of those unlawful killings, 97 people lost their lives. Their families and friends lost the key part of their world forever, and countless others suffered trauma. And as I say, I've been reflecting a lot on this past couple of days, because I don't know why, as I say, but it hit me. I was 8 when Hillsborough happened, turning 9 that summer. I'm 43 now, turning 44 in a few months. And in those 35 years since this happened, I've been through school, I went to university, I graduated, I became a lawyer, I've started numerous businesses, I've had countless friendships, I've fallen in and out of love, I've been married, I've been divorced, I've started raising children, I've laughed, I've cried, I've been excited, I've been depressed, I've travelled the world, and as most of you have done, I've watched my favourite football team do some unbelievable things that I'll never forget. The key bit of all of that is I've lived a life, we have all lived a life. Stop and think about what you've done in those years since this happened. And as we do that, I think it's impossible for any of us to truly understand the loss or to understand the trauma suffered by the family and friends of those who died, or those who were impacted as a result of the disaster who didn't lose their life. But I think aside from just us paying our respects every year, something else that has always come up for me with this is we've always talked about the fight for justice and what we wanted from it. And I've always struggled with that a bit, because to me, there is no justice. There can be no justice for people losing their lives. Think about everything I've just said. Think about what you've done in that time and what those people lost and what those families and friends have had to go through in that time. There can be no justice for that, no real justice. But I think the best way we can honour and remember all of those that were lost and impacted by Hillsborough is, at the very, very least, to make sure that we come together to remember the reality of what happened that day and what happened to everyday people like you and me, and what happens to those people whenever a tragedy like Hillsborough happens. And at the very least, to put an end to tragedy chanting once and for all. And who knows, in the bigger picture, maybe one day, enough of us will get together and start to truly hold to account the people in power for the things they do and the things they get away with when it comes to things like this. But that's a conversation for another day. Any extra thoughts on that, Rob? I know you wanted to mention something about the Palace fans.
Yeah, obviously there was a silence at Anfield before the match against Crystal Palace, and you know, it sort of depressed me over the years that some of these silences, certain occasions, have turned into applause. Basically, it seems to be because some people can't be trusted to observe the silence, essentially. And so that's always in the back of your mind about, silences that have been spoilt in the past and the tone that sets and the fact that can upset people. So I was in the Anfield Road for the game yesterday, and to see Crystal Palace's away support so impeccably observe that silence was heartwarming in a sad moment, do you know what I mean? And I was with my son as well, and I didn't want to have to explain to him why people can't observe a silence for something so important, something so sad, and something where we are all fellow football fans as well. So it was meaningful, and it was fantastic how good they were, and it wasn't just over that as well. I mean, look, we can't dictate the behaviour of other teams' football fans, but I also just enjoyed the fact that they just got behind the team. They got behind the team, they celebrated the goals, they sang songs. They didn't turn everything round to just the boring old stereotypical nonsense that you hear from so many away fans. There was nothing about poverty, there was nothing about the state of Liverpool, there was nothing about that, we can't get a job or any of these like ridiculously boring tropes. They just supported their own team. And I came away from it genuinely thinking, great set of lads, well in. Nice, do you know what I mean? That's good. In fact, that was basically the high point from the game for me, because everything else was awful. So yeah, that was really good. And also, just to add to what you were saying as well, I don't think there's a year at this time of year, I was, touch wood, not directly affected, if you like, by any of this other I know people who went, but thankfully they came home. And some of them I know, and some of them I'm really close to, who have found it really difficult just to talk about the day. And, as I say, they've come out of it relatively unscathed. So you can only imagine the torture that both, friends and family of people that were lost at the disaster go through, but also, survivors as well. And especially survivors who were in among it all and saw some horrific things. So, yeah, thoughts with them really, and thoughts always do gravitate towards them, but you can't help thinking about, what it must be like, and again, me taking my teenage son to the match, I just thought, it's horrendous, the idea that he could go to a match with his mates and not come back. That's just so horrifically sad, isn't it? And today, as you say, everyone said, shares the tweets and puts the pictures up and says the things. And unfortunately, you still always see it where someone somewhere will say something, and that's one of the old tropes about Hillsborough that's been proven over and over again to be a lie, and proven over and over again to be wrong. Tomorrow, at Edgehill Uni, where I work now, I keep not revealing where I work. That's where I work now. We've got Phil Scraton coming and doing a talk before a performance of 97 Plus, a play about Hillsborough survivors. I've seen it. It's powerful stuff, and so that's on at the university tomorrow. It's all booked up. You can't book on now, but I'm going to be interviewing Phil, and I've brought his book here. Book's in my bag because I've been going back to it. But if anyone does want to know the truth about Hillsborough, and anyone does want to know exactly what went on, and all about the cover up, and all about what everyone had to go through connected to it, I would say that is the de facto book to read. hard going, don't get me wrong, because of the subject, obviously. But, you know, if there's someone somewhere out there watching and thinks, I feel like I still don't truly know what went on, that's the book to read. And it's a tough read, but an important read.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, well done to the Crystal Palace fans. I doubt any of you are watching, but if you see any clips of this, it's actually heartwarming to have that type of response, this, as Robbo says. And look, it's obviously always difficult. It's emotional talking about this stuff. I find it emotional. And it's always difficult to segue from talking about something like this, a tragedy, to talking about a game of football or games of football. But that's largely what we're here to do. So let's talk about Liverpool since we last saw you a week ago, when things were looking rosier than they are today. So you mentioned the minute silence beforehand. There was another slow start to the game, generally speaking. From home, we had often the dynamic is you were at the match, I was at home, which was the same for the weekend. I've been thinking a lot about this as well over the past few weeks. How, a couple of months ago there was this big thing about Jürgen Klopp's only got so many games left, and we're all counting them down, and every game is going to be a cauldron, and every game is going to be like a European night. And the last couple of games, we're going to go on to talk about Atalanta a little bit later. I know it was a few days ago, but we'll tie it into talking about all this. I just don't think that's happened, really, has it? Like, it seems like it's been a bit of a damp squib, and I think it might have even gone the other way. Andy Robertson mentioned in his post-match interview, and he quickly said it was understandable, but he mentioned the crowd seemed anxious.
Yeah, I think there was that, and whether that permeates to the players or it permeated for the players to us, there's always that chicken and egg thing, isn't it, about atmospheres in grounds. I think the answer is probably it was both.
Yeah.
Because with it being so tight, and it remains tight, despite all the people who are waving the white flag, there's still only 2 points between us and City, and we're on the same points as Arsenal. So we're obviously going to come on to talk about whether it is done and whether it's over and whether we think we still got a chance, or whether we just think that boring robotic team marches on and lifts another title and we all walk away in the summer going, well, that was boring again. But yeah, in the ground, it was a strange one. There is obviously the fact that it begins with a silence, and it's a solemn occasion, and it's the game closest to the anniversary of Hillsborough. I wouldn't in any way, put anything to say that that's the reason whatsoever. That is important that takes place. It was spot on. It was brilliant, as we already said. The mosaic looked fantastic. And I, for once, got a view of that because I'm normally in the Kop. But, I was the other end of the pitch this time around, so I got to see it, and it looked fantastic. But from there on in, I'd already exchanged messages with our mutual friend, Phil Keeley. And we were talking about, wouldn't it be great to just have a game where it was nice and calm, and we got an early goal and we won 2-0, and we all went away going, that's exactly what we needed. And a game, we just didn't get that, or even close to that. We didn't get that on Thursday, and we didn't get that this time either. And you come out of it going like, the emotional side, the chimp side, whatever, you're like, what have Palace got against us? Because I almost tweeted something, and I'm so glad I never now, because I was just doing a bit of research for myself. I was meant to be doing this interview on radio early on Sunday morning. It got cancelled last minute. But, I'd done a little bit of prep for things I was going to say. And one of the things I was going to say was, people bang on all the time like this bogey side. And yet, I think it was we were 13 games unbeaten, I think it was, before yesterday. So we'd turned that over, and, we'd thrown that idea out the window that they were a bogey side. But equally, I was also going to say, but I get it, because they spoiled the party at Steven Gerrard's last home game. They spoiled the party in 13-14 when we were going for the title. And for old arses like ourselves, they spoiled the party in the FA Cup when they beat us 4-3. And I just want to say, lads, if this is all revenge for the 9-0, well, are we done now? Do you know what I mean? Can we leave it now? Because the thing that was just mad for me was like the bodies that were getting thrown in front of shots, some of the saves from the goalie. Like, there was one save there which was sort of like Dudek-esque, Dudek in Istanbul when he does that mad thing where he's just thrown his hand up and you're all looking at it going, I don't know how he saved that.
Yeah.
There was one of them from their keeper yesterday. And, and Klein's popping up. We all thought he was done and dusted. Where's he come from? And why is he blocking our shots? And it just felt like, we'll come on, no doubt, to talk about, the finishing or lack of. But equally, like, they defended like men possessed. And it was like, what have you got against us? Where have these before? But it was funny afterwards in the pub, one of my mates said, what's that about? Why are they doing that when they play us? Why don't they do that when we play other sides? Yeah. And I was like, they beat City, And he went, oh, well, anyway. But yeah, it very much had that feeling early of, it's one of those days. It's going to be one of those days. And it was one of those days.
But I think that's interesting in itself, because I think it's a very long time since we've all done that. And it does make me a bit nervous even more for when Klopp's gone, because I think something that's changed massively, his whole thing when he came in of turning doubters to believers, we used to commonly, I think, before he came into our club, we would commonly be saying to each other inside the ground, it's one of those days.
Yeah.
And I always think that energy permeates onto the pitch. Everyone starts looking at each other going, it's one of those days. I think what has changed and what had changed and has been up to this point this season is one of those days for Liverpool. I think me and you might have even commented on this in the years gone past. One of these days turned into, we'll always score. That's what it, when people go, oh, typical Liverpool. It's like, no, typical Liverpool is you win late, like Man United did and haunted us in the decades we were growing up. And it just seemed yesterday like that old thing has crept in of, we're never going to score. And I could feel that at home, and there was still like 15, 20 minutes left. And I was like, come on, we can. There is so much time left. All the stats are coming up on Sky. I haven't put this in our agenda, but they literally kept flashing up on Sky, like, who's scored the most goals in the minute from 76 minutes to 90 plus minutes. Number one ranked team in the league is us. Number 20th ranked league in the team ranked in the league for defending, conceding that time, Crystal Palace. So they concede the most late goals and we score the most late goals, and yet somehow we all seem to get into our heads and be like, this isn't going to happen. When I feel like there's a belief element that's crept in over the past week, and we're going to talk about all that. But it's worth mentioning that we went behind again. Obviously we lost, but we went behind early. And you threw me a stat earlier. We've now conceded in each of our last 9 games at Anfield, which is the joint longest run without a clean sheet in the competition. It is worth remembering we haven't had our first choice keeper for most of that time, if not all of that time. And despite how good Keller has been, Alisson is the best goalie in the world, so you're going to miss him. And you mentioned Dean Henderson's save, but Alisson did one of those Dudek saves where literally you're watching it back going, wow. You could see like Mateta's face, like it was Shevchenko's face from Istanbul. Yeah. Like literally, I can't believe that hasn't gone in. And even when you watch it back, it's like his arm turns into like a rod of iron for a split second. It doesn't even move.
Robertson's clearance off the line's unbelievable as well.
And it's funny, it's easy to forget, isn't it? Like Klopp even post-match was talking about our chances second half, which we'll talk about. But that clearance is unbelievable. And things like that, it's where XG doesn't...
Well, you watch on the telly, didn't you? I was going to say, I only saw it back before. And when it shows you the graphic of how much he's kept it out by.
Yeah. Did you notice, though, that the thing he did with his feet before he got to it? Carragher was raving about it on commentary. Like, as he was sprinting towards his own goal, bearing in mind, he, like, does this little hop and a skip with his feet to get himself in a position to be able to clear it. And it's mad that, because if you think about XG and the way stats work, like, as an XG shot, it's a shot from the edge of the box, isn't it, really, with the goalie coming out? So it won't rate that highly. I don't know what it was, that individual shot. But that's basically a goal.
Yeah.
If it's not for Robertson, it's a goal, but he saved it by inches.
But it's when things like that happen and then don't fire onto something. You know what I mean? Because that's what you're used to as a football fan. When there's a big tackle or a big moment like that where you haven't been playing that well, you think, right, that's it now. That's the trigger now, and we're going to be sound now. But, you know, we created so many chances, didn't we, obviously, and different types of chances, and falling to different players as well. It wasn't just like one player fluffing chance after chance. It was all of them, wasn't it? You know what I mean? And then, you know, you come away afterwards and, you know, there's all these stats popping up about XG and nearly 3 or whatever it was for Liverpool. And isn't it, you've probably got it there, haven't you, though? It's something about, it's the highest XG without scoring since time began or something.
Yeah, it's so Liverpool's XG total versus Palace 2.87, the most on record since 2010-11 in a Premier League match in which they did not score. It was It was the most XG without scoring by any side in the competition since Brighton versus Norwich in April 2022. And when you think about the players we've got on the pitch for that, but we're all going to come on to have a big chat.
This is the yips, isn't it? This is like, you know, this is because when we were talking about it in the pub afterwards, we were saying like one of my mates was saying, because this was my argument, I was like, it's the yips, it's got to them. You know, it's not. I said I don't feel angry with anyone. I feel sad that it potentially ends the way that we don't want it to end here. And I feel sad that they've put so much effort into this season, recovered so many, you know, seemingly lost situations, got us to, you know, this place where we are, you know, 6-7 games to go and we can win the league and we can still win the Europa League, etc. And then very, very quickly it seems to be unraveling. I just felt sad about it. And I was like, you know, I don't personally feel there's anyone I can massively get stuck into, because I don't see anyone who isn't making an effort. I don't see anyone who isn't trying. I don't see any bad body language. I don't see, you know, someone upsetting the group or making it about them or things that you've seen in past teams and past squads and other teams and other clubs. None of that, is there? You know, like I've said before and somehow got stick for it, like whatever happens, I'll have a pride about what they've done this season. And I think I still will. You know, like I heard banter radio on my way in and it's going like, what happens if Klopp's, you know, final season just ends up with the League Cup? Well, it won't just be the League Cup though, will it? It will be if you want to do banter. But it's been an unlikely title challenge ahead of time from a team in transition. It's been a team that, you know, put our hopes through the roof and provided us with some great moments and all of those comebacks, etc. And look, it's not over. This isn't my speech to say it's over, but this is my speech to say why I wasn't angry. But when we were talking about that psychological side and potential yips, and, you know, you look at, you know, Curtis when he goes through and he looks like he wants the ground to swallow him up and he puts his shirt over his head. Mate was going, how can it be like that when they've got these psychologists there and they've got people who work with the mind? And I was like, yeah, they work with the mind because they recognise the power of the mind to fuck things up, basically. And I said, you know, the best psychologists in the world, the best brain people in the world can't stop that from happening. It still happens. And partly this is why we love the sport, isn't it? Because of the level of randomness in it. And it's that level of randomness in it that means we can still cling to something and hope that, you know, Man City do fall somewhere along the line. And, you know, they've got lots of games. They're still in the FA Cup. They're probably going to go through in the Champions League. They could end up playing Arsenal and it'll be big Battle of England bollocks in the media and that could disrupt something. And equally, we've seen them just march through and win all the games. It's dead boring and no one's bothered and everyone turns the telly off, stops reading about football and goes to the zoo with the kids and says, another season spoiled by 115 charges FC. But there's still hope. There's still a chance. Yeah,
and we'll come back to that as well because I want to finish on that. But to go into the detail of some of the stuff you were talking about then, so. And it ties into something we were talking about last week, actually. So we've gone behind in 21 out of 32 Premier League games this season now, which is just fucking ridiculous, isn't it? It's the first time Crystal Palace have won an away game since November when they beat Burnley. And I'm pretty sure Burnley went down to 10 men that day. That's also 2 home defeats in a row after not losing at home since being beaten by Real Madrid in February 2023. And I want to have that chat about what's to blame, because, you know, the attack was getting the blame after Old Trafford, and I made the point that no one's talking about the defence. And I also said, you know, if you're going to edge either way at times like this, most top coaches edge defensively. And a few people message us about that, but our mate Andrew Beasley, we often
weekly shout out.
Give him a weekly shout out for copying his stats. Thank you, Andrew. Give him a follow at Base Tune to Red on Twitter. He messaged us saying, cheers for the shout out, lads. Thought you might be interested after Paul mentioned it being better to focus on defence re Arsenal. That's a little bit of a myth, Andrew said. Best defence rarely finishes below second, but best attack has won the Premier League more often. And he shared a table with us, which was interesting. And I was going to ask him for the stat that I'm about to talk about, but the same stat is on the table. Because when I was talking about that last week, it's one of my favourite points in life. What I wasn't making is a black and white point that you're better to have the best defence rather than the best attack. What I was talking about was there's a range here, there's a scale, as I like to talk about in life, with best attack and best defence. And we've skewed too far, I think, towards trying to be an attacking team. A bit like sort of Kevin Keegan, Newcastle. We'll outscore you. And my point is sort of, if you do that, you're always putting loads of pressure on yourself. The thing I was going to message Andrew about, and then realised it was in the table, is, okay, so in this table, in the past 20 years, the team with the best attack has won the league 19 times. And the team with the best defence has won it only 11 times. But here's the kicker, and I was going to ask him, what about the team with the best goal difference? Because goal difference tells you how they got the balance between attack and defence. And the team with the best goal difference won it 20 times. So once more than the best attack. And this was the interesting thing for me as I started looking at the table. The team with the best attack when they've won the league has more often than not either also had the best defence or had the second best defence. It's only the odd occasion, and it's mainly, going back to when we were talking about United and how they won leagues, but it's back in the 90s mainly. United often, often won the league by having the best attack, but either having the third, fourth, sometimes sixth or seventh best defence. But even in those years, they tended to have the best goal difference. So when their defence was shit, they scored even more goals to make up for it. So this balance has always been, it's about getting it right most of the time. And especially this is the most important point, in the Man City dominant era, the last time the team with anything other than the second best defence won the league was 2016-17 when Chelsea won, and they had the third best defence. So my point was not so much we have to have the best defence, it was we need to have a better balance. And the problem with this going behind all the time is, and this is almost, in defence of our strikers for still getting a lot of the blame. I think what we're starting to see now is something we saw in the past, which is the strikers feel more and more pressure to score goals. And the last thing you need as a striker is that much pressure. I know I said last week, again, there's a balance thing. I said last week, we seem to be a bit shite against Man United because we dropped our levels. And we needed a bit more pressure. We need a bit more of that danger, jeopardy in there to help us. But I think where it feels like it's gone now is just too far the other way. Like every chance is like, I've got to score this chance.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I mean, I'm not really sold on what he could have done about it, because even yesterday, it's like, you're having to change your defence, and we get an injury to Bradley. You mentioned before the goalkeeper situation. Matip was really good for us. He's out for the season. Do you know what I mean? Like it's felt like it's constantly patching up and sending it out there and hoping for the best a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think they've done fantastic to be where they are to this point with that in mind. And I don't think like sort of systematically you could change too much with that level of injury. And even like, even Curtis, like, I'm absolutely not getting stuck in on him at all. Quite the opposite. I'm going to say, I think if he'd had a couple more games back, probably put it away. But, he's a little bit rusty, isn't he? Is it his first start since February or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
So, and little things like that seem to have started to conspire against us a little bit. Like, like Trent comes on And like he does some Trent stuff, and he looks decent, but he's not full Trent, is he? Do you know what I mean? He's not full. And like, you know, people are getting stuck into Salah now and starting to say he's looking a bit of a shadow of himself. But he's coming back from an injury still, isn't he? And so all these little things now start to mount up a little bit. And I think as well, you know, I think about what we're up against. Like, I can't remember what it was I tweeted last week, but a City fan replied to me saying that like literally everything's our fault according to you, isn't it? And I'm like, well, yeah, it is, mate. Yeah, but I almost think like the style Klopp's gone with and the type of football we do, we've done relatively, you know, successfully, is almost because we can't go out and buy 3 squads worth of world-class players. So instead, we've got to think of this disruptive style that wins more often than it loses, but comes with a level of risk. And that's what it's always been, hasn't it? So, you know, sometimes the risks come back to bite you on the arse, and that started to happen as well. But equally though, you know, we could have won 2 games yesterday, couldn't we? You know what I mean? With the amount of chances we have. Yeah. But I think you're right. I take your point about, you know, it feels like the forwards are now, even Jota, he's got one where you just think, normally Jota's thing is just how cool he is, isn't it? Like nothing seems to bother him. We've said before, when he's actually playing in the Premier League, sometimes it looks like he's sat there with his Xbox controller, like beating people at FIFA, because he's so cool in the moment. But there was one where he's hit it, like the defender's come in and blocked it, hasn't he? And you just think, you know, one more little Jota turn and he had an open goal. But instead he's gone with, he's hit it. And it was that all day, you know, like Núñez absolutely booms one straight at the keeper, doesn't he? From about 5 yards. Obviously he was poor against Atalanta in terms of his finishing as well. And yeah, all of these things have just started to mount up. You know, obviously Salah's not anywhere near his best. Everyone can see that. And then he's getting frustrated and trying things which are annoying. And then we're getting on his back a little bit, and the ground, you know, the Robertson thing referencing the ground, he's right. But that too is born from the pressure of the situation and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's hard work. It's hard work for everyone involved. It's hard work just being in the stands, because that tension is palpable and it's horrible. And like, I think everyone in there will probably say, I get what we're meant to do, and I get it would be better if we all just got behind the side. But equally, it's horrible, and you know, it's horrible that when you start to think, I thought we were going to win this. Thought it was going to be that fairy tale. Thought it was going to be that big golden goodbye for Jürgen Klopp, and now it might not be. And now we have to watch them lift it. I'll tell you what is a bit sad though, and a bit I'm not sure about it, boys. Is loads of people got off, and I just thought, what are you doing?
That's poor.
It is poor.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, lots of people got off. And when you think about the messages that we've had from the great man from the very start about, like, you know, we can still win a game in the 92nd, 93rd, 94. He called everyone. That was Palace, in fact, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the Palace game way back at the start of his reign. He came out and, like, had a pop at the fans, didn't he, about getting off. So why have we all forgot? Why are we getting off?
Yeah, but this, you know what I mean? I think this is an interesting thing, because when you're saying about talking to your mates about like the yips and the psychological side, I was sort of smiling to myself in an ironic way watching it, that like, Joe, everyone did this. Oh, it's gonna be 10 big games now, whatever. You know, all the big home games. They're gonna be a cauldron, and it's like you can't force human behavior like that. It's a bit like I always say this. I think I've said this on shows before. Do you know when people go, "Oh, this thing happened and I'll never forget it," and I always laugh to myself thinking, that's not up to you. You, in 10 years, you'll have like me and you often talk about on the show. You'll have some random memories about things your brain's decided to remember that you never in a million years thought you would remember, and there'll be things you've completely forgotten about that would have been the things you wanted to remember. It's just not the way it works. And it's the same. One of my other favourite things that I've mentioned in the past. One of my favourite ever shouts at a football match for nonsense was when Martin Kelly was coming back from injury, and someone behind me in the main stand shouted, "Don't be rusty, Kelly." Like, that's a choice. And I think that's one of the, I hope it's not something we look back on with sadness and regret. Not so much regret, because there's nothing we can do about it, but sadness that all these players are coming back now, but it might just be a little bit too late. Because as you say, you know, Curtis Jones fully fit, does he just slot that shot? Diogo Jota, that chance. I mean, we're gonna talk about Núñez and Salah in more detail, but we've all been raving about going on about Diogo Jota, us on this show, me saying, well, once he's back, and he had the easiest chance. That, I mean, I know what you're saying about do another like little move or something, but he could have just slotted it. We had so many of our chances. It was funny because Paul Mercer mentioned this on Sky watching the Arsenal game as well, that things are put down as great blocks and great saves, and often you look at them and think, no, that's just a really bad miss.
Yeah.
Like the goalie or the defender should just never have had a chance to get anywhere near that. I don't know whether you saw it. Did you watch the Arsenal game? Like,
yeah, it was on.
This is my point. Like, if you look at the overall stats for us yesterday, we had nearly 70% possession, 21 shots, 6 on target, 10 off target, 83% passing, 3 clear-cut chances. We've already talked about the XG. And without stats, as we've already said, and everyone said watching that game, with your own eyes, the chances we missed were unbelievable. But if we played that game 100 times, we'd win 99 of them. And this is, as you say, it's the beautiful thing about football, but it's also the excruciating thing about football is, and I'm sure Arsenal fans would say the same. Like, did you see the Trossard chance? It was worse than any of ours. Like, at half time, they actually showed it. And at the time, they were like, oh, what a save by Martinez. Martinez is basically like just inside one of his posts. The ball comes across the goal, and Trossard has got the entire goal, other than where Martinez is standing, to slot the ball into. And he hits it close enough to Martinez for him to get his foot to it. Now, you can say great save, and he does well to get his foot to it and all that, like all the blocks and the saves yesterday. But if he just rolls it 2 yards closer to the other post, Martinez doesn't stand a chance. And no one in the world would say, keeper should have saved that. And it was the same with ours yesterday. Like, and I wanted to talk about them in more depth because you sent a tweet to me and I wanted to get your view on it, and I purposely didn't ask you before the show because you shared a tweet with me that won it from Brock on Twitter.
You know who that is, by the way?
I don't know who that is, no.
It's Mike Gurley.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well,
he said, them there.
Yeah, just that. Yeah. Hello, mate, if you're watching. There was a tweet by TNT basically saying Darwin Núñez has the worst big chance conversion rate. I mean, this is a bad stat, isn't it? Darwin Núñez has the worst big chance conversion rate across Europe's top 5 leagues, 20%. And Mike, who I now know it's Mike, retweeted it saying, overindulged cult hero bullshit.
There's a level to that which I definitely can get on board with. You know what was like people always get a cob on if you say something at the match annoys you. Like, there's actually people out there who will defend the shoot thing with Joe Gomez, even though seriously? The managers come out and said it's not helpful. Can you stop doing it? I mean, a small proportion of people in that ground did it in a situation where Konate could have shot, and it's like, are you having a laugh? You wanted Konate to shoot? I mean,
honestly, mate, to me that feels like there's plants in the ground. You're like, people have planted City fans in to shout that. Because I'm like, which Liverpool fan in their right mind wants Konate or Gomez especially to shoot constantly? The worst, like, I mean, you talk about big chance conversion rate. At least Núñez has scored a shitload of goals apart from that. Joe Gomez has never scored. I think he's got the worst shooting accuracy in our squad, and we've still got people shouting that. I was going to say to you before Joe events went past us with everything else.
He shot against Atalanta, didn't he? Yeah. And like it was awful. And honestly, I was in the car going, that's what happens when you're asking him to shoot all the time. Mate, he's a defender. Honestly, we don't want him to shoot.
I think Klopp should be coming out on the pitch with the microphone before the game and saying to people, Jibby, you've got my permission to punch the person next to you. If they start saying this, just stop it.
But on Núñez,
go on, what's your... You said you could get on board with that.
So one of the reasons I sent you that was because there's this thing that's developed, and on the one hand I sort of get it, but on the other hand I think it's really annoying now, of anything and everything he does prompts his name being chanted. Yeah. And to me that's not how it works. So if he misses a fucking sitter, why we all go, Núñez? He's Mr. Sitter, lads.
Yeah.
And we paid 85 million quid for a fella that can win his football games. And there's been 2 games now where we've been really bad. Well, 3 games where we've been really bad in front of the goal. And he's been part of that.
Yeah.
And so what do we, like, you know, I get, like, supporting them through the wind and the rain. I get supporting the side. But, like, sort of, you know, singing his name as though he's done something special when he hasn't done something special. It doesn't work for me, that. I don't get it.
Yeah.
And like, that's where I think... That's where I had the sympathy, and it made me laugh a little bit about Mike's tweet, because it's like he clearly has missed a lot of sitters. I think it's 18 big chances he's missed this season, more than anyone else. And we talked before, we create some chaos, and there's all his hard work and the stuff that he does, his presence and all that kind of stuff. That's sound, but in situations like now, in situations like yesterday, in situations like Thursday, he's got to score. He's got to score. He's got to be clinical. And, like, you know, he's not. And, like, someone said to me yesterday, and I can see the argument in it, to be honest. He said, like, will the next manager indulge him? Because it's starting to feel like he's being indulged. He doesn't deserve to be in the side on the basis of his finishing in the last few games for me. And equally on the reverse, a lot of people seem to have decided that Gakpo's a scapegoat now. He's not good enough, he's grim. You see it all the time, all over social media. And I think he's been decent the last... I thought he was decent on Thursday, and I thought he was decent yesterday. He looked like someone with something in his locker, whose mind was in the right place. And for me, he deserves to start the next game, because it's not happening with Núñez right now. So we've seen before where he's been dropped and it's cultivated a reaction from him. Let's do that again then. Because right now, I'm not having it. And I seen, did you see the goal Dan scored? You know, we talked about Dan's on here before.
Well, not just his goal. Did you see the run and shot he had that led to the first goal in that same game?
Oh no, I didn't see that.
So this is where was it the under 21s or the under 18s away at Old Trafford? And he won 3-0. His run, like, his goal was brilliant. For anyone who hasn't seen it, go and watch it. It's a Sadio Mane-esque back heel, isn't it? But that's to go 3-0. At 0-0, he picks up the ball, like, just inside their half, runs with it, skins like 3 men, has a shot from the edge of the box that the keeper parries, and then one of the young lads, can't remember who it was, comes in and buries the rebound. But it's all created by Dan's. And I thought the same as I think you're about to say. Like, why isn't he being lashed into the mix?
Yeah. Like, imagine him coming on 10 minutes ago or whatever yesterday. Because what I think is, we know for a fact that every Premier League side now has a team that clips videos left, right and centre, and they're all prepped and they all know what they're up against. And I thought you could 100% see from what unfolded at Anfield about the bits where Palace had done their own work. So, you know, it felt like they were targeting Endo. Endo hasn't been in form and wasn't in form again here, hence him being hooked. And it felt like they targeted him a bit and said, well, you know, he's not playing well. Let's get into him. Let's test his touch, all that kind of stuff. And equally, they'll be looking at the forwards. Every opposition is looking at our forwards right now and saying, well, he's not in form and he does this and he tends to do this and he might do... I mean, particularly with them not being in form, they might do less instinctive stuff and they might do this and they'll go on this foot and they'll go this way and whatever. They will have studied it to the nth degree. They can't have loads of clips on Dan's because they don't exist. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't think so anyway. So he's like a wild card, isn't he?
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you've thrown a horse onto the pitch and like, what's this fucking up? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was disappointed. I mean, I know like the bench was ridiculously strong yesterday, but I was genuinely disappointed that he wasn't on there because I just thought, if we get to this situation, exactly the one we got to, and you want a little wild card thrown on, he was the man. And you know, obviously tweeted about the fantastic goal at Old Trafford, and like a few people replied saying, well, you said he was going to have a big moment, but did you mean the 21s? I was like, no, I meant the first team. And look, there's still time, isn't there? There's still games. You know, we're going to need goals out in Italy on Thursday. There's no way to go about it other than shit or bust when we're 3-0 down. So perhaps he gets to go there. Perhaps he pops up there. I'm still saying, I mean, it's not as good a point now. I don't feel like when I was saying the other week, I feel like there's a Dan's moment. You know, I felt like I was going out on a bit of a limb, but when he's done that at Old Trafford, I think most people would say, well, there's definitely a chance of there being a Dan's moment now.
Yeah, but you know what? I was just, again, ironically laughing to myself on the way over here today and I was thinking, God, this will end up happening. It'll get clipped. I'm pretty sure I said a few weeks ago when we were talking about, the most likely outcome of this league season. If you were just looking at like statistics and probability, the most likely outcome is we lose the league to Man City by a point or on goal difference. And the sad reality is now we might still have that Dan's moment, and we might still win 6 games on the run, and we might still just lose the game on the league on goal difference. And
it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
But this is the thing about yesterday and people leaving and all of this stuff tied in together. Like, and I know when we drew at Old Trafford, we do the thing where you're trying to make yourself feel better. And go, well, you never know, that could be the point that wins you the league. Even just looking at it now, I was thinking about it. City are 3 ahead of us now, aren't they? Or are they 2 ahead? I've got 2. It here. But you never know whether you'll end up in a position where that just getting a point against Palace could have been the point that meant you didn't have to rely on goal difference. And if you lose on goal difference, you're like, but if we'd have just got 1 that day. But just sticking back with that, I want to make the point about Gakpo as well, because I thought he did well again. And it's interesting because I'm not in the ground hearing. We know lots of people like Núñez and love him, and he has got a cult hero thing. But I often think this, like the same people who'll back him to the hilt, I'll be the people criticising Gakpo too much. And I think he did have a big impact. And of all of the players who came on the pitch, actually, because he seemed to be given the role to be like, get some width, get some chalk on your boots, spread them a lot.
Decent balls,
and he was putting good balls into the box. He was being creative. But he was possibly the most impactful without having a big chance. Then I think it's important as well to mention Salah, because we've given, look, we try and be balanced on this, don't we? We'll give Núñez praise when he deserves it, and maybe a bit of criticism when he deserves that. I think you and I are 2 of the biggest fans of Mohamed Salah. But it was interesting, I saw our mate Steve Warnock on Sky this morning shared this. I don't know whether you saw it, that they're talking about him being out of form and not being great. And as you said, he's come back from injury, he's come back from AFCON. But they were sharing his minutes per goal over the last 5 seasons from the first 28 games versus the last 10 Premier League games. Have you seen this?
No.
And it's fascinating. I never thought it would happen. So other than last season, strangely enough, where his minutes per goal for the first 28 games was the worst it's been at 201 minutes. In the last 10 games of the season, it was one of the best he's ever had. He went to 126 minutes per goal. But in all other 4 seasons, including this year, in the last 10 games of the season, he drops off a cliff, which suggests he's overplayed in the early part of the season. And Steve made the point that he played in the second leg against Sparta Prague when we were already 5-1 up. And do you know when you're like, these are the moments where you're a bit like, it happened a couple of seasons ago where Jota played in a game he didn't need to play in and got injured. And it's these times
that
where you're
midget
like,
land.
Yeah. And it's these times where you think, because Salah looks like he does. I know he scored and assisted in a few games, but he does look like a shadow of himself, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And there's a point here that this isn't just a one-off. This is a regular thing that we probably don't pay as much attention to because his numbers overall are so good. But I think there's an argument here for him coming out the side as well on form. And look, I get this. I was going to say this when he got subbed the other week. So it's the joy of being a footy fan and not the manager, isn't it? We get to change our minds whenever we want. I was thinking, imagine being Klopp and making the decision to leave Núñez and especially Salah out and bring them on. Like, that's much easier to say as a fan or playing fantasy football than it is in real life. But at the same time, like we actually did really well without Salah while he was away at AFCON and while he was injured. And there is an argument here that we've seen Núñez off the bench in the past. Salah and Núñez off the bench in any games that we've got left give you something. Imagine them coming on yesterday with half an hour left or 20 minutes left.
Well, there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change now, doesn't there, in strategy? You would think. Like, if it just goes that team again, you're a bit like, it needs shaking up now. You know what I mean? Because We've messed up against Palace. We've messed up. And okay, I get all that, like, and we could have won a million games. But equally, I feel like you got to shake something up here. You got to change something. Do you
think? Because I was going to say this. After all the focus on the attack, then I wanted to focus on the defence. Do you think the midfield's getting off lightly? Because what I was thinking about before is what it's looked a little bit like, especially against Palace, but against Atalanta as well. It looks a bit like last season. Do you know when Henderson and Fabinho's legs had just gone, and we were like, this midfield can't do what he needed to do anymore.
Endo
looks goose to me.
Szoboszlai's not in form.
Szoboszlai hasn't got back to the height he had, but at least his legs seem to be there. McAllister, since we've all, me especially, praising him as the best player on the planet, he looks like his engine's gone a little bit and he's been overplayed.
He looked like on edge to me. You know, you're talking about sort of maybe pressure getting to some of them.
Which is mad, isn't it? Because
I was boomed a pass at Nunes. Way too much on it.
Yeah.
And then kicked off on him. And you're like, it wasn't a good ball, lad. Like, I get to think of firing into feet and that takes out the defender. I'm not daft, like, but fired it a bit too much there. Like, I thought it was harsh that he then turned around and had a bit of a pop at him, personally. One thing we just haven't done, by the way, before you carry on, is give a shout out to people who are throwing in little super chats here.
Oh, yeah.
So Dave Fitz is throwing in $10. Says the pressure of the title race, you can throw in a performance like we did and Arsenal did. I don't know what you're on about there. Sorry, Dave. I think he's saying our result probably got in their heads. I get it. So I think he's saying, like, you know, what we did has then impacted them, and then the pressure's got to them as well. I get it now, Dave. Sorry, mate. He says, anyway, have a beer, coffee on me. So thank you, mate. The detective has thrown in $9.99. Specific. He says, trying to remain positive, lads, but it's tough. I think we've hit the perfect storm with players being knackered and injured and not having rhythm. Injured players not having rhythm.
Yeah.
I think City will drop points, but so will we, he says. And Goose Step Scouser has thrown a fiver in. He says he wants us to sign I don't know how you say this. I'm so terrible. I always have been so bad with names. Cisco, is that it? I think he means the young lad who's at Brighton. He wants us to sign him anyway. So he's thrown in a fiver. McNangle has thrown in €5. I think that is there. All right, boys, love the show. This league isn't over, but we need to shape up quickly for all the away games coming up. It is Euros, because he says, greetings from Dublin. You'll never walk alone. So thanks to you all there for throwing in, as ever.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, it certainly is, because you know, we're trying to keep the whole thing going, and little things like that help us. So yeah, thank you. And CISO, someone has put, as you know, where they put it in in a way I can pronounce it. Yeah. Phonetics is the word. I always someone commented to me son about like what your dad's like on this show. And me, like, fair play to Gareth, he said, my dad's coming straight from work and doing that, you know. So if he chats some shit or looks knackered, that's why he is. Yeah. So, yes, I have literally just got out of my car straight from work and jumped behind the microphone. So, it's as if I chat more nonsense than usual sometimes.
Well, we've talked about this before, haven't we? Like, if you've never talked on a mic, live especially, go and do it and see how much shite you talk. And when you leave afterwards going, yeah, that was shite, wasn't it? I wanted to make a point actually on the free show hour here, because I said something that I said to you, I do our clips, and I went to clip it, and I thought, I'm not putting that out as a clip. Because I made the point when we were talking about the fans and ticket prices and stuff, which we'll have to talk about on the Patreon show now, because we're running out of time. But and I said it just came out. I said, like, you know, we went to the ground as kids, and that's the only real way to get addicted to this thing. And I thought to myself afterwards, well, that's bullshit, isn't it? Because there's millions of fans all around the world who were addicted to being in Liverpool. Did they?
Yeah.
See, I didn't even see that, but
of course they did.
I could predict that, because it's wrong. I was wrong to say that, but I only said that because it comes out your mouth live, and then you're like, oh, actually, if I could go back, I'd change that. So that's obviously bullshit. It's not the only way to fall in love with a club, because many of you have never been to Anfield and you've fallen in love with the club, and fair play to you. But we are running out of time. So look, we've still got stuff to talk about Arsenal and City and the league, because I don't think it's over. I'm not giving up hope. But we're going to have to talk about it on the Patreon show, because we're running out of time here. So, plug time. If you're not a subscriber yet, you can come over. We're doing the shows live back to back. So in 5 to 10 minutes, we'll be going live on Patreon. If you look underneath this show on YouTube, there'll be a link to our Patreon. You can, if you're not a member yet, not a subscriber yet, you can have a 7-day free trial where you can watch our show today for free. You can there you go. You can also go back and watch all of our old Patreon shows. There's 50 shows there now. So you can watch all of them if you want to pack them into a week to see whether you like it. And then if you want to subscribe, you can subscribe for as little as £1 a week. It's a bargain. Come and join us. Come and check it out.
I'd like to get close to, like, without revealing everything about what goes on behind the scenes. We're quite close to like a little landmark as well. Yeah. And you know what I'm like about that? I was like this about the subs on the YouTube channel.
Are you checking it obsessively?
Yeah, I think it's like a form of OCD probably, isn't it? If we're all being honest here. And we're really close to a landmark. So like, if you could just sign up to Patreon so my mind's a better place, that would be fantastic. And do just click, the subscribe on YouTube. That costs you nothing, but it helps us. Equally, it helps us if you click like as well. Someone's put there in the comments, actually, smash likes for the boys, which I enjoy. Do
you know what, something I love? When someone just puts a comment in YouTube and just puts for the algo.
Yeah.
Just throw in a comment for the algorithm, because if you don't know how this works, if YouTube sees loads of comments coming in, they'll go, oh, people like this, and they'll show it to more people. So that helps.
It's good. It's a good word in Scouse, that, isn't it? The algorithm. Do it for the algorithm, lad.
Something that makes me laugh is how often we talk about algorithms in normal life now. Imagine if it's like after after the Hicks and Gillette era of being a Liverpool supporter, you'd walk into a pub and just hear fans talking about leveraged buyouts.
I know.
And you're like, where the fuck did this come from? How are we in a pub talking about a leveraged buyout of Weetabix?
I know.
Like, why are we talking about this? And now, imagine if I'd have gone back, imagine 20 years ago, I'd have gone to you, got a prediction for you. People in the general population will be talking about algorithms all the time in 20 years.
It is really, man. It's like, if you take a step back like that and talk about that, it's absolutely wild. Like, just think for a second here. And he's absolutely brilliant, by the way. He's really, really good. And if you've never read the stuff, go and read it. This is not to disparage him. But imagine if, like, I don't know, in 1993, when we're going to games or whatever, you'd turn to your mate and said, in the future, we're all going to be on like the internet. And then you would explain what the internet was. And then you go, right. And then there's going to be a fella who we all turn to a few times a year and like religiously read his stuff. He's going to call his blog The Swiss Ramble. And what it is a detailed analysis of every Premier League club's finances. And everyone's going to be bang into it. He's going to do these dead long Twitter threads and everyone's going to go, he's great, him, spot on him, explains it so well, which he does do. And that is a nice little plug for you there, mate, if you watch or listen. But it's mad as well that we're footy fans.
We're so into the accounts.
We're so into finances.
Amortization.
Amortization is another one.
It's mad. In a career as a lawyer, I never knew what amortization meant. I learned it through being a footy fan, and I took that into my career.
Did you not know that chestnut though? The only other one I ever heard about that is, every time when you come to, like, it's like a little voice in my head. Nah, don't get a new car, because as soon as you drive it off the forecourt, that's the only other place I knew about that phrase, amortization from. Brilliant.
Well, there you go. That's it. As Robbo says, hit like and subscribe on YouTube if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening to this on the podcast, leave a review somewhere saying how great it is. As I've said in the past, if you think it's rubbish, don't mention it to anyone. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, we'll see you next week, unless you're coming over to Patreon, in which case we'll see you soon.